when it all comes down to it, this social initiative plan is the positive moving forward aspect of it. What is it, best you can tell?
Well, look, this is the thing that, in my opinion, folks don't talk about enough. You know, everyone wants to focus on the demonstrations. And again, it was only a handful of players that we're talking about here by the end of the year. And they were not protesting. Again, I'm repeating myself here, you know, at the expense of folks who know me. But they weren't protesting the anthem. They weren't protesting the military. They weren't protesting law enforcement. They were protesting an injustice that they see in the community, and they wanted to shine a light on it. Now, having said that, the thing that folks don't recognize enough is the real work that these players are doing in their communities to try and make positive change. So, for instance, with the Players Coalition, one of the pillars of the Players Coalition is criminal justice reform. So you say, well, what are they out doing? Well, you know, a week or so ago, I went up to the Bay Area in California, and they're holding sort of these public forums where they're interviewing district attorney candidates before the public. Why? Because one of the quickest and most efficient ways to deal with criminal justice reform is on the local level, and district attorneys have so much power. So they're doing that. And you say, well, are they having an impact? Well, you look in Philadelphia, and they lobbied hard. The coalition members lobbied hard for the Clean Slate Act. That got passed. You look at Massachusetts, where the Players Coalition wants to focus on juvenile sentencing. And in Massachusetts, a bill was passed through the House where now the age for juvenile sentencing is being increased or raised. So there are areas where they are having a real impact, but the public doesn't want to focus on that. And I think the NFL is smart in saying, we feel these issues are important. We want to continue to work with our players on that. We want to show them that we're doing the right thing, that we do support them, not only in money, but you have owners who have been out, you know, doing these things. Some of the more progressive owners in this, when you talk about it, you talk about a Jed York. You talk about a Michael Bidwell who's been really supportive, Arthur Blank, Shad Khan, Stephen Ross, Jeffrey Lurie. You can go down the list who these guys say these issues that these players are fighting for are very important to us, and we do support them on this. We also understand that there's a business element to this in terms of how some fans feel, and we also want to be respectful of that.
Well, then I guess the last one for you then, Jim, is there a group of players who, based on what you just said, who would basically not sit knowing that it conflates the issue for people that will never understand why they're sitting or kneeling, and taking away the attention of all that good work that you're talking about, that if you post all the focus on that this is where the social injustice correction comes from, as opposed to kneeling.
Right.
Is there some sort of movement there that the kneeling's kind of run its course, if you will, in a way?
Well, that was the feeling of Jed. I mean, Jed felt that it had run its course. Again, when you look at the end of last season, there were only a handful of players who were kneeling, and so he felt that they were by that. And I go back to the words of Dr. Harry Edwards. It was a piece I wrote at the end of last season, where Dr. Harry Edwards, the renowned sports psychologist and activist, had said movements are fleeting. And he talked about back in the '68 Olympics, where he was part of the group that, you know, when John Carlos and Tommy Smith raised the glove fist. And Dr. Harry Edwards was part of that. And he said after a while that died. And then he talked about the Occupy Wall Street movement, and he said how that died. And then he pointed to things like Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement, those sorts of things, how they have a finite shelf life, if you will. And he said even with these Anthem demonstrations, that was going to pass in time. And so by changing the Anthem protocols now, you sort of reignite the fire there, or the discussion and the debate, and the feeling among some was that this was dying. So to answer your question, do I think that more players now, or there will be players now who will still continue to try and press this issue and will demonstrate? You can never say never. And that's the reality of it, and nothing that you do is going to stop that, short of keeping the players in the locker room, all players in the locker room during the national anthem. And the owners simply did not feel that was the right course of action.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.